It's time for the biggest non-league football debate in the country. Search official BOTN and get involved with tonight's show.
Welcome to this week's edition of the non-league debate. Delighted to say that on the back of the net sofa tonight we have Jim Cooper, Jody Brown and Slough Town joint manager Neil Baker. Plenty to discuss on the debate as always, and our attention turns tonight to team talks. And don't forget, you can get your thoughts into us across social media. It's official BOTN, or you can email goals@botn.tv. So let's get into the debate tonight. What makes a good team talk?
Who's going to start then?
Well, I think you should.
Oh,
you're the most experienced.
You're the only current manager.
I think it's difficult. I think everyone has something different that they probably bring to it. Myself and John, it's obviously different because we're joint managers. He will always start by naming the team. We'll often talk a little bit about the other side, and then it tends to sort of fall to me, and I'll try and do a little bit of a rousing bit. But we don't spend loads of time on team talks. You know, we talk to the players during the week, obviously at training, and I think, I mean, as a player, when I was in the changing room, and you know, you're listening to long team talks, and often you'd switch off. So we try and keep them nice and concise, and yeah, whether that's right or wrong, who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm on the similar vein to that. I think I mean, I'll speak about the opposition generally on the Thursday night anyway, and try and implement that into the training. Mention it briefly on the Saturday about what we went through on the Thursday night. But I mean, I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but come 5 minutes before you walk out, that's when I try and ramp up and try and motivate them and be a little bit more inspirational, and try and G them up, sort of thing. And that's my aim, is to get them ready to start at the pace we can dictate to start the game, really.
I've got to ask you to follow on from that. It sounds like it's a bit of a Churchillian speech. What's in it? What do you say that gets the players going? And does it differ game to game?
Yeah, it differs. I mean, it depends who the opposition is, who the opposition manager is, if there's been any previous banter, let's use that word, between the two dugouts, etc. And also, I suppose, where you are in the league position as well, because if you're down the bottom, you're going to want to be, like trying to draw every single ounce out of them as soon as they get on that pitch. And if they're at the top of the league going for promotion, now it's a case of just keep going, keep doing what keep believing in what you're doing, and take it out there, really.
Do all managers naturally have a good team talk in them?
Impossible for me to say, to be honest, because I've not been in a dressing room with all managers. I've seen some good and some bad, but that's not to say they haven't got a good one in them. But yeah, I think we've probably all witnessed some bad team talks.
Is it too simple to say with a team talk that you need to know what motivates your individual players, and once you've got that, and you've got it sussed in your dressing room?
Yeah. Motivating your players, you should be doing from the moment you get there, to the moment they go out on the pitch. I wouldn't necessarily say that's just within a team talk. I have to say, a few times I've had to do it on my own, and I struggle. When John's not there, I find that a lot harder for me to do just on my own, because I've been so used to, for the last 8 years, of doing it in a certain way, that all of a sudden it becomes very, very difficult, or very different, should we say.
It's funny when your routine gets broken. Yeah. It's like if someone walks in the dressing room midway through the talk, like you get a knock on the door, and it can completely break the moment of where you are. So, there's lots of things that influence a team talk, but, you certainly, routine is one of them, I think.
But don't you think, though, that exactly where your boys are?
Yeah.
When they're sitting there? Because sometimes someone will be looking up the ceiling, and you have to, literally, I mean, I do. I have to start shouting and trying to get their attention by raising my voice just to get their attention. And sometimes you can turn up and they're on point. You think, blimey, there ain't a lot to say here. Just let them get ready for the game themselves.
I think there's lots of certain games dictate your team talk as well. I mean, I remember back to one of the early rounds in the FA Cup where we were playing a side 3 levels below us. We'd drawn the game at home. We'd been poor. Myself and John, we went into the team talk angry. We went into it angry. We were still fuming from the Saturday, and we didn't actually have to say an awful lot. We got over our dissatisfaction basically from the Saturday, and sort of put it back on the players and said, right, it's over to you. And they responded. But there's plenty of times where that might have happened where they haven't responded. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing things. It's just trying to, work out at the time, you know, whether it's going to work, and you know, I don't know really.
There's been a few famous team talks down the years, down from the Premier League to the football leagues. Phil Brown's was one of them, famously 4-0 down to Manchester City at half-time. He kept them on the pitch in the centre circle to do his team talk. Jim, I don't know why, but that might seem like it was your kind of cup of tea, that thing. Have you ever done that? Have you ever kept your players
I'm sure
on the pitch?
Yes, I'm sure
I've never kept them on the pitch because the language that would be coming from my mouth wouldn't be suitable for the public. What I have done on numerous times, literally gone in bald and said, get straight out there. And if it's absolutely tipping down rain, I don't care. I'll just say, get yourself out there. And they're sometimes out there for 10 minutes waiting for the opposition to come. Now, whether that's right or wrong, but trust me, they know I'm not happy. And it generally gets a response from them.
I think the Phil Brown one was to try and get fans on side. Yeah. I think it was more of trying to make an effect, perhaps for his own position, rather than the impact it would have on players, because it probably just aggravated the players.
Classic CV though, isn't it?
And it did aggravate the players, because you only have to remember, was it Jimmy Bullard, you know, and he went in and scored his goal, and then gave them the
all of them. That was,
And so you know that particular team talk, or that did not go down well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great idea to belittle your players publicly. If you're going to do it, like Jim has said, he'll go in at half-time and he'll be angry and he might say a few things. It's fine, it's in the dressing room. You start saying it publicly, it's probably not the best idea if you want a good dressing room and a good team environment. So
nobody on the sofa is going to become the Jose Mourinho of the non-league world, then obviously criticising players quite a lot at the moment at Manchester United.
You see it quite a bit. It's not something that we tend to do, myself and John. Try and keep it as in-house as possible. I mean, I think we're quite, say, basic, you know, in terms of how we try and deliver things. You know, we go in at half-time. If we've got a lot to say, then we'll talk for a period of time. If we haven't got a lot to say, we'll be in there maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes tops, and then we go out and leave them to it and let the lads sometimes just sit there and talk it through. Maybe that's because we trust the players, and you know, we've had a lot of them for a long period of time, but. So I think that, you know, that's different.
Well, I can give perhaps a measure of how Bakes and Unders are actually are respected by their players. I have not heard one bad word said about them. No, I'm telling you, from players that have played for Slough, and we've loaned out numerous players from yourself and I previously, and again, all I hear is good things about their management style. So, you know, I mean, that's obviously a good thing that's come from yourselves.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, at times I always remember back in last season we played Rochdale, and we were 1-0 down at half time, and you know, obviously the TV cameras were there and everything like that, and people said, well, you're going to do what you normally do, and we were like, yeah. So we went in, we spoke for about 5 minutes, and we were sat out on the bench, you know, in the dugout for 10 minutes, and people probably sitting there thinking, well, what are they actually doing? Well, you know, we feel that during the week and various times we say what we need to say, and we don't overload them with information that we don't necessarily feel that they're going to take in. So whether it's right or I don't know.
It's an interesting point you made about that you wouldn't publicly criticise players, and we used Jose Mourinho as the example at Manchester United at the moment. But in today's world, I guess team talks, you could say, they do sometimes go on the club TV channel. So if you wanted to, when you're doing the interview at the end, you perhaps could give a subtle message to a player. Have you ever done that?
Yeah. I think it's difficult not to, especially when you're caught up in the emotion straight after a game, because normally when you're getting, you know, the camera crew in your face, it's normally 5 minutes after the game, and you're still potentially irate. So yeah, I think there have been times. I think less and less, you know, you try and think about what you're saying, because you know that it hits every single platform straight away. So you do try and think, but sometimes, you know, I do remember once, particularly last season, I dug out a player in an interview after the game, and to be honest, I regretted it the next day. I sat there and thought, I should have left that in the changing room. I shouldn't have brought it out there. And we ended up having a conversation about it, and I apologised for what I did. But you know, you do get caught up in emotion sometimes, and you can't be perfect.
We can't talk about team talks without mentioning John Sitton's famous Leyton Orient rant. It was a Channel 4 documentary. It's still on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth checking it out. But one of the questions that I wanted to bring from that is, have you ever deliberately gone into a dressing room to rile the players and actually get them angry and get them angry at yourself because it would pump them up for a game?
100%. 100%. Even when we're winning. Even when we're winning, when we're winning at half time, and I think just before the half time break, they might just put their foot off the gas, allowing the opposition to get a bit of a foothold in the game, and I don't want it obviously then to continue the second half. And literally, I'm going at them as if they've been the worst side that they've ever seen, and they're like sitting there thinking, my goodness, what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that's right, or I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but for me, it tended to work more times than not.
John Sitton's famous examples, I think he sacked one of the players at half-time. He offered two of them to have fights with him, and I think the famous line was, "You can bring your dinner too." Have you ever gone that far? Anybody here?
I don't know why we all looked at you, Jody.
I was looking at you, Jim.
I was looking at Jim as well.
This one here, I suspect, in the dressing room. You've seen my team talks.
He's very calm in a team talk.
Yeah.
We'll go on to tactical information in a minute, but following on from that, another famous incident in a dressing room was the hairdryer treatment that came out of Manchester United into Alex Ferguson. Ever thrown anything or had anything thrown at you? I've got to ask these questions.
I've not. I've been in the change room with George Borg. Plenty of stories about George. I remember at Aldershot and teapot, and I remember he once tried to kick the wall and he put his foot through a door, and all sorts, and each to their own, I guess. It's not something I've done, but I've definitely seen it.
One time I lost control of myself. It was against Manchester Rovers when I was manager of Halstead Town, and we had a cup final coming up towards the end of the season, League Cup final, and this league game was pretty much had no effect on the final standings, and we had to go up there on a Wednesday night as a rearranged fixture, and they weren't a great side at the time, towards the bottom, and we were in the promotion places or on the fringes of promotion, and we were 3-0 down at half time, and their substitutes had the technical areas were very close, and their substitutes kept going, "Thought these lot were meant to be a good side," and you don't react. "Thought these lot were meant to be a good side," don't react. Ignoring it, but taking it in the whole time. Went in at half time, and I flipped the table over, threw the orange juice on the floor, asked the goalkeeper, who was a good friend of mine, if he wanted to confront me, because he always had something to say. And we had a centre forward who was meant to be like the hard man in the Colchester area. I threatened him, and they all probably could have smashed me all over the dressing room, to be honest, but I'd completely lost my temper about it. The one and only time, and like he said about when he criticised the player, straight after, I just thought, what have I done? I completely lost myself. And
did you win?
No. 3-1, I think.
Yeah, I've done something similar to that. I think it's funny now, but at the time it weren't. I was fuming. Went in and I saw the opportunity to flick the tray of orange juice. So we're going back a while now. Orange juice in the cups up in the direction of the players. But I've got too far underneath it, like my goal shots, and it's gone straight out in the air. It's all come over me, and I am dripping wet. And the only people I can hear laughing is John Nicholson, who's my coach, and Gavin McPherson. The players are in shock, sort of thing. What's going on?
I knocked the tea over. It went all over Adam Gillespie, who was then my physio at Haybridge when I was manager. Chris Bryan, a good forward at the time, who went through the levels with me as well, came walking in late, and I just pushed him and he fell over a bag into the shower. So yeah, completely lost my head. Never again. It was probably 12 years ago, to be honest. I learnt a lot from that embarrassing evening.
So we've had no hair dryers, we've had tea and orange juice. Neil, have you got anything that you've thrown across the dressing room?
No, I'm pretty calm in that respect.
It'll happen, mate. It'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will. It's just, as I said, having experienced George Borg, I think you try and learn things from managers when you played, and it was one thing that I sort of took away from George, that I wouldn't be that thrower of the tea and stuff like that.
And do you know what? I'm the opposite though, because I played for George as well, and I'm not saying about throwing the tea around. I think I've actually took a lot from him, Johnny Steele and Ted Hardy. Those are the three completely different people, and yet,
When we talk about being in the dressing room and the team talk, it might not just be the manager. Do you get your captain to be vocal? Does it depend on what type of captain you have in the dressing room?
I think for us personally, most of the time it comes from myself and John. However, there are times that we will ask, you know, normally at the end of the game, you know, if we've had an issue or something's not gone quite right, that we will throw it open and sort of, you almost want to see one or two leaders in the change room and come up with something. It's not often, I'd say, it's not often that we do that, but occasionally you'll get somebody that will want to say something, but, you know, again, it's got to be done in the right way as well.
I wouldn't encourage that in the dressing room. Like what I said earlier about kicking them out of the dressing room early, I'd be looking at the captain then and just like a bit of a nod, and they'll know straight away. Then they'll do his work out when they get outside. Yeah. And generally it would be like, you know, let's show him, he ain't got a clue what he's talking about, blah, 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 which I'm quite happy with, just as long as I get that response from them. But yeah.
I think I always, and managers I've worked with and when I've been manager, we've always done the same. Give them a bit of time before we even go in. So let them let the dust settle in there, let them have their issues about who was not picking up their man, who keeps giving the ball
after a game?
At half-time or after the game, yeah, before you sort of address the players, let them have 4 or 5 minutes. Don't rush off the pitch and get in the dressing room. Let them have 4 or 5 minutes before you're even in there, and a lot of their issues will be settled. They'll solve a lot of problems. Then you come in with your key messages, and yeah, that's what's worked for me.
You don't get many videos, obviously, of the managers in dressing rooms. There was one that I watched on YouTube, and it was a famous one of Neil Warnock. I think he was at Port Vale, and he actually had a cup of tea in the showers and stood there for a good few minutes listening to the players and what they were saying. Have you ever been in the dressing room and thought, I'm going to, similar to what you said, Jody, but actually being in the dressing room and sitting there or standing there and thinking, I'm just going to let this argument roll for a little bit?
I think you know, I'd be wrong if I said that we haven't.
Away games,
yeah,
you haven't got somewhere else to go,
no,
really.
No, you don't.
So you're in there. At home, you might have your office, or you might have a part of the ground that you know and you're familiar with, where you can go and stand and gather a moment together as a staff. But away games, you're all in there. Kitman's in there, physio's in there, everyone's in there. So you hear and see it all.
Have you ever had a player do a team talk, either at half-time or before the game, ever said to a particular player just for effect to give a team talk?
No, I haven't. No, I've never encouraged that. It's not their job to do, is it? No. I would imagine it'd be fairly alien to them as well. And you know, for me, I don't think that you'll get the respect of the other players, if I'm being brutally honest. You know, my opinion is that they'll be sitting there, what's he doing, stand up and giving something that the gaffer should be talking about, you know. And listen, just going back to your previous question about, you know, like what you said, I think it's a great idea to listen to the players coming at half-time and at the end, but I can assure you, it's 9 times out of 10, the players will not admit their own mistakes. They'll be pointing fingers at other people, and I just think it just descends into chaos sometimes. It's your fault, no, it's your fault. So I don't like that, albeit I do like to think that
it's
just
a 2 or 3 minutes.
Just to let them have the rant, and then they
just let them calm down. Yeah. I actually read Jose Mourinho in his first spell at Chelsea. The last thing before they went out was said by a different player every week. So they were nominated during the week and they could prepare something. And it was like John Terry was, you know, a lot of expletives and motivational shouting. Ida Johnson came in and read like some literature, some motivational literature. Other people sort of, you know, would speak tactically and speak about work rate and these sort of things, these cliches. But so Mourinho at the very top did actually let a player each week do the final bit. So not the team talk as such, but that final bit before you walk out the door into the tunnel. He had a player doing it every week.
It was actually the example that I'd read, and was why I asked the question, because that what Mourinho did. There was a famous example as well. I think Mourinho got the physio at one stage. I think it was a character or a kit man.
Yeah,
to do the things.
Masseuse,
yeah. I'll be brutally honest to say we finish our warm up. Myself and John, we go in and we're literally in there for 2 minutes, and then we're out, and we let them get on with it, because at that point they're the ones that need to get themselves into game mode, and I think everyone has different ways of doing that, and as you say, that it enables people to say, right, come, you know, and it might be a bit of motivational from a player or captain, but I don't even know, because we're not in the changing room, so we literally let them get on with that.
Yeah, I've done exactly the same.
Yeah.
Just ramp the music up, let them just like get pumped up for the game by that.
I think you're crazy if you have got natural leaders, like good natural leaders. I don't just mean the chest pumper and the cheerleader. I mean a leader who knows the game, who knows how to talk to people. You'd be foolish not to let him speak. I don't mean do your team talk, but that moment when you walk out the dressing room, if he wants to get the boys in and go, right boys,
even if it's don't listen to all those, whatever it is that gets them up for that game.
If he's got that gift, not all people have. I've heard people talk a lot of nonsense, but I won't name the players, but I've known some players over time that you walk out and, like I say, at an away ground, there's nowhere really to go, so you're only just outside the door waiting to go on the pitch, and you hear what they say, and it does add value. So I think you'd be crazy not to encourage them to lead and make decisions for themselves.
Have a voice.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're the manager and your staff, and they can't be contradicting what you want, really.
As a manager, actually, as being in a dressing room, maybe as a coach or working under a manager as a coach or a player even, what's the best team talk you've heard? It can be your own if you want it to be.
That's definitely not one of our own. Funny enough, mine was, I think I was 16, 17, and it was for Wickham, and we were up at Southampton at Staplewood, and it was Jim Melvin, and I always remember it. It was his last game for Wickham, like, you know, the academy team, and he just gave such a motivational speech. I always remember it. It was brilliant, and I come out of it, and I was like, yeah, you know, I was absolutely pumped up for it, and so I always remember that one for myself personally.
Yeah, for me, I've got to be honest, I played under John Steele. It seemed every single team talk that he done was inspirational. It was, he just grabbed the attention of the whole room, if you know what I mean. I mean, I was a youngster then, to be fair. You know, I was only 17, 18 playing for a bloke who was a legend in the game already by then. And it was just like, I was just like captivated by every single word he said, if you know what I mean. So for me, he was a legend for me.
Is that about the words that he says? Or is he saying similar things that other managers would say, but is it the way that he comes across, the language that he uses?
He's a big, imposing character, and it was as simple as that for me. It was like everything was succinct, it was to the point, it was exactly what he wanted you to do. He got that message across to each and every individual, and then collectively as a team.
Jody?
I was smiling all the way through it because I'm more thinking of comical team talks that I've heard, so I don't want to repeat them.
Well, we were going to go on to the worst that you've heard, so you could start us off.
No, they're not bad. They're not bad because in the right time, comedy can work.
Well, you can tell us. You don't have to tell us who it is. Anything particularly funny that jumps out?
I'd have to tell you the game, and then that tells you the manager.
Well, we're fine with that, by the way. Just letting you know.
No, I've been in some very good team talks, mostly motivational ones, because when I've been part of the staff, I've always been the one giving the tactical input, and then the other guys stepped in and done the motivational bit. And there's been times when I've been motivated by what the manager said, but there's also been times when I've seen all the players smile and it's made me laugh, and then it's been repeated at end of season dinners and on team buses and stuff. So there's some magical moments in dressing rooms, isn't there? I think that the ones I'm talking about are best left in the dressing room.
I must ask you as well, at the moment you're working for Dagenham and Redbridge, and Peter Taylor once managed an England game and has famously handed Beckham the captaincy for the first time. Yeah,
I'm very lucky to be in the dressing room with him at the moment. He gives a lot of key messages before the game. He is motivational, but he's also, like Jim would say, it's his team talk, it's not other people's team talk. So he makes sure his message is across. Doesn't speak for a long time, as Neil said. Gets out, leaves us in there, the staff and the players. He's out there in the dugout waiting for us. But it's very different when you're in full-time football, because we've trained Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, preparing. So team talks are different in part-time and full-time football. But yeah, to be in the dressing room with Peter Taylor and Terry Harris, who's had an exceptional non-league career as an assistant manager, I'm learning every day. So
I'm gonna have to ask you about your worst experience in a dressing room. Anything that stands out, anything that's funny or just not something you remember for the wrong reasons.
Can't sit here and hammer up managers, can we?
I wouldn't,
you don't have to tell us.
I wouldn't say like stand out. For me, the worst team talks were really long, boring. You know, where overloaded with information. You know, and, it just goes on and on and on, and you just end up switching off. That, for me, that was the worst. That was the worst thing, and that's probably why we try and keep ours slightly shorter.
I love the way you worded it. The worst team talk. There's no specifics in there. That's good. That's what we want.
I'll give you one for your clips, all right? And it's in a positive situation. So I worked with Terry Spillane at Redbridge, and we got to the FA Cup second round as a Step 4 club. And he would always sort of say, right, Jody's going to prepare you, do this, and then he'd have his motivational speech. And through the FA Cup, it was pretty much the same every week. And he would sort of say, right, I need 18 warriors, not warriors, warriors. He'd say, kittens don't something cats. I don't like my bum being smacked, do you? All these sort of motivational cliches. But it worked. It honestly worked. And we took some unbelievable scalps along the way. And we were at the hotel on the way to Crawley Town for the second round, having the pre-match. And the substitute goalkeeper tapped the glass. And he stood up and he said, first of all, like, it's been a great journey. As you know, although I haven't played many minutes, I've absolutely loved it. It's been a great ride. So it seemed like it was going to be a very true speech. And people, I think, were getting quite inspired. Then he went, right, we need 18 warriors, kittens don't cats. And they basically just mimicked the manager's team talk. But it completely broke the ice. Yeah. Like, the manager laughed, we all laughed. And we actually gave a good account of ourselves at Crawley. And I think a lot of people were tense at the time. And it relaxed everyone. So Terry was very good at that, like, motivation, but also like bringing comedy to the dressing room so people were on side and playing for him. So although I look back and laugh and wonder what it all meant, it did serve a purpose and did hold us in good stead.
What's right and what's wrong?
Whatever works for your team,
absolutely.
and it worked for our team.
Well, I think it's a classic anyway, so I won't tell you who the manager is, but half-time come in, the manager is going, Jim Cooper, you've been absolutely rubbish, you haven't been able to pass the ball one of our players, you ain't done no running, you haven't spoken to anybody, you're the worst fullback I've seen in non-league football. And he's shouting and hollering, but he's shouting and hollering to another player thinking it's me. And this player turns around and he's only young, so he's younger than me by 2 years, and says, yeah, but I'm not Jim Cooper, I'm Warren Barton. And I'm obviously not honest enough, I'm just sinking down in my chair.
Definitely got the story of them all, I think, there, Jim.
That's a classic.
Last one on team talks. What advice would you give? Plenty of experience on the sofa here, but to somebody who's starting out in a management journey, somebody younger that's watching and wants to know what it takes to be a manager and give a team talk.
I'll jump in quick. You've got to be yourself. Don't try and copy someone else. Do what works for you and be yourself.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, that's perfect. Really, you know, you have to be your own person, and you will only ever find out once you get yourself in that change room. You stand in front of 16, 18 players. And that's when you'll find out. You can't prepare for it. I don't believe. It's either a natural thing or it's not. And I don't think there's any other advice other than be yourself.
Yeah, for me, I suppose accept the losses when they come along, accept and learn from the bad times, because you have bad times when you're a manager, and just be truthful to yourself, really.
There you go. Team talks done by the guys on the sofa. Don't forget, you can get your thoughts into us official BOTN across social media. Just leave your comments, and you can email us as well. goals@botn.tv. Plenty more to talk about on the show. We'll talk a little bit now about the FA Cup, and obviously it was a disappointing result against Gillingham, but you gave a good account of yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, disappointed in the final result. Thought we were excellent on the day. We put in a really good shift. Probably first 5-10 minutes, you know, maybe nerves were there a little bit, and you know, we didn't keep the ball as well. But from then on, you know, we were the better side over the course of the 90 minutes, and I know Steve Lovell would probably agree to that. It's one of those where you'll look back and think about missed opportunities, because we had a number of chances on goal. I think the shot count was 22-8 or something like that in our favour. We had better stats on possession, corners, everything really, other than the most important thing, which is putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's why stats can skew everything anyway. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It depends on, or it just matters on how many goals you score and how many opposition score. And unfortunately, Gillingham scored with an absolute worldie strike, and we're out the FA Cup, and what could have been a potential home tie against Cardiff City. So have to take it on the chin.
Another good cup run though this year, but what does it do for your league form? Does it have any impact at all on the league, having a good cup run, the confidence that it brings?
It didn't last year. We ended up with 99 points. I think we had a little period, maybe 2 or 3 games after, where we weren't playing quite as well, and I think it probably takes it out of you, especially once you've had the live TV and then you go to playing in front of maybe 500 or whatever it was for the next home game. But hopefully it won't. In the past it has for certain teams. Hopefully it won't for us this year. But we're in a tough league this year, and it's a really competitive league. So we have to bounce back from it straight away. Tough game at Dartford on Saturday, and with a bit of luck we can get something from it.
I have to ask you, we've seen you a couple of times since Slough, a couple of times this season. Have you got in your mind where you think you can finish, or where you've set your targets to finish? And have you told the players, linking it back to the team talks?
I think, yeah. I mean, we set targets at the beginning of the year. I think every manager, in the game has to set their targets as high as possible, and we're no different. We might have come up last season, but you still look at the playoffs when you go into any league, especially when there's 7 teams that can get into those playoff positions. And I think from a point of view of our club, you've only really got to be in and around the mid-table sort of area to be within touching distance of those top sides. And as long as you can be there sort of January, February time, then you might be able to have a little push, and a good end to the season could see you into those playoffs. So from our point of view, 100%, we'd still be saying the playoffs, but there'd be lots of people at the club that would say a year of consolidation would be great, but that's not us as managers.
Very refreshing, because normally you get it banded out, don't you? Yeah, you get the 40 points, stay up, we've just come up, consolidate, and it gets a bit boring to hear it, because as a manager that not many people really think that. It's just the one you say in public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, you are looking at what Neil's saying. How many points do we need to get in the playoffs? Like, if we're within 5, 6, 7 points of that with 3 or 4 games to go, we've got half a chance. And that is how you look at it, if you're being truthful. And it's refreshing that he says it publicly, rather than just saying, we've just come up and we want to consolidate, because I don't think that's ever really true.
No, and I think if we ended up finishing mid-table, people would still say it's been a decent season. But from our point of view, we're ambitious. We're ambitious as managers, as players, and as a club. So you've got to set your expectations high. I think if you don't set your expectations high, you'll fall below them anyway.
It's like Muhammad Ali said, wasn't it? He was telling everyone he was the best long before he ever was the best. So if you're going in your dressing room and saying, we just need to get 40 points and stay up, well, that's the culture and the mentality you're going to develop. If you're talking about how close can we get to the playoffs, that's the culture you're going to develop. If you're talking about winning the title, that's the culture you're going to develop, and you have to lead it and follow it as a manager.
Going back to your original question in relation to perhaps a bit of a hangover after the post-FA Cup, it'd be interesting to see what happens to Woking. Obviously, they had a great result. They got a fantastic draw at home to Watford around January the 6th time, and they've got, I think, Hampton over the Christmas period twice as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that reaction and results go as well.
Do you know what, Jim? I think that they can use that as a massive positive.
From a manager's point of view, you'd use that culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to play.
Absolutely, because you've got this massive carrot that's dangled in front of you a month down the line, and you're sitting there as a player. You're sitting there thinking, well, any chance I've got to be giving.
But I think, we've all played, and you've also got in the back of your mind, you want to play in that game so much. I don't want to get injured. And sometimes that can manifest and you have poor performances.
I think the spotlight's a big thing, and I think players are motivated by the spotlight. And I think they'll have the cameras around them quite a lot in the lead up to that game and at their games before. Watford will be at their games before. There'll be a lot of media coverage, and I think it should lift the players. I don't think it will have a negative effect. No. Jim's right. Obviously, some might have it in their minds about picking up injuries, but then you run the risk of not getting in the side at all. And a manager like Alan Dowson, I'm sure that'd be the message that he's sending out.
We must just say what a fantastic achievement that was for Woking, and they've got every chance at home against a Premier League club.
And ridiculous as that sounds, why not? Because there's plenty of Premier League sides that don't necessarily take the FA Cup early rounds with the way it should be taken. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a number of changes, and you just never know. It's the beauty of the FA Cup, isn't it? And
Lincoln beat Burnley.
Absolutely, at Burnley, and I don't even think they made as many changes as Watford might. Who knows? But it's brilliant for Woking. I've got a number of good friends there, and I'm delighted for them. Financially, it's huge for any club really, but for Woking, it's absolutely huge, and what a fantastic game to look forward to for everyone.
The one thing I'd fear as a manager in that is the way Watford play. They're quite athletic, a lot of pace. Relatively direct by Premier League standards, counter-attacking, and often the difference between the non-league players and the very top is the level of conditioning. Yeah. Whereas if they came up against a team that is possession-based, you can set up in a block and keep playing in front of you. I think it is going to be tough because Watford will be, whichever team they pick, there'll be pace and power in there, and that's going to be tough for National South players to defend against.
But I mean, Woking will be well prepared. Dowse, Ian and Martin will have that team as prepared as well as anybody can in pro football or non-league football. So, who knows on the day, funny things have happened, haven't they?
And it's a once in a lifetime for the players, isn't it? They're going to raise their standards beyond belief, and yeah, you're right. They should not get anywhere near the Watford players, but
it's just the way Watford play. Yeah. I think there's better fixtures in terms of Premier League clubs where you could set up to stop them playing a lot easier than Watford. Yeah. I don't think Watford's play is as predictable as some of the teams higher up in the Premier League. They'd have probably fancied Manchester United, wouldn't they, at the moment? Woking. I think
anyone would prefer playing Man United in the FA Cup.
I think when you go into that game, that really you just want to give a good account of yourself. Yeah. You will have sleepless nights worrying about being 7, 8, 9-0 down. You will, because you've got to have that fear inside you to stop it happening. Yeah. But you'll also be having those sleepless nights dreaming of putting your team 1-0 up at Vicarage Road. So, just a great day for the players, the staff and the fans, obviously. Yeah, it would be a brilliant game, and of course we wish them the best of luck. We will try and get Alan Dowson on the show before that game if we can. Right, let's have a look at the non-league team of the week. What were your thoughts, gentlemen, on the non-league team of the week this week? I'm glad to see Butts, the goalkeeper. Fantastic keeper. I was discussing the other week about how good Jack is at distributing the ball from the back, and probably how you work on it as well. He's such a plus to have a keeper who can play out from the back, as is now promoted by most professional teams in the Premier League. I'd say
those two are the best I've seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen
with their distribution.
Yeah. And when Jamie played me, I was trying to get pro clubs to come over and take a punt on him, and all I got back at the time was he's too small.
That's probably the one thing that's really held it back, isn't it? And it's ridiculous because he's a top quality keeper.
He's a fantastic keeper, fantastic lad, and I'm glad. Yeah, it's a good thing to see him in the non-league paper team of the week.
You got Michael Cheek in there from Ebbsfleet. Wasn't in the team under Daryl McMahon. Gary Hill's come in a couple of weeks ago, put him straight in the team, and I think he's responded with 5 goals in 4 games.
Some turnaround
for them, and got some positive results off the back of it. So probably deserves his place in there. But it's probably been a tough season for him up till now. So it's a small reward. I'm not sure how much the players read into this team of the week, but I think some probably really care, and some probably don't. Knowing Michael Cheek, I'm not sure he's one that would be that bothered.
Well, I've seen the players retweet it on Twitter, so I think quite a few of them do.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But Cheek, he's a very quiet lad, not like a typical footballer. He might not even know that he's in it.
And if you want to get your comments onto the non-league team of the week, you can follow the non-league paper on Twitter and leave your thoughts. You can leave your thoughts with us for anything that we've talked about on the show tonight. It's been all about team talks and, of course, looking at the FA Cup as well. It's official BOTN across social media, and it's email goals@botn.tv. Gentlemen, thank you ever so much for your company this evening. Neil, of course, wish you every luck with the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll have you back on the back of the net sofa before the end of the season, and we'll see you again next week.